What's up, guys? We are back with another Gundam Universe review, taking a look at the next entry in the Gundam Wing franchise, and this completes our team. You know, if we don't get anything else, which of course we already know we're getting more from Wing, this completes the core group. We finally have our 5th member of the team. We've got our Shenlong Gundam. It's been a long journey at this point. We've got all the members of the Wing crew. We've got some extra stuff out there as well. We've got 2 versions of the Wing. We've got a Tall Geese. We've got a Leo coming. But I'm really happy to finally kind of round out the core group until they want to start getting deeper into Endless Waltz stuff, different forms, things like that. Of course, the Shenlong comes in our standard style packaging for the line. So you've got some artwork on the front in that sort of weird little window that shows just a little bit of the figure and some of the accessories. We've got sort of a blue and white motif for this particular suit, playing off some of the colors of the Gundam, and then you've got a product shot on one spine, and then the back of the box gives us kind of an action shot, as well as some idea of how it moves, and some cross-sell for the rest of the wave, the Master Gundam and the Sazabi. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Gundam Universe Shenlong from, of course, Gundam Wing. Now we're basically rounding out a team for the first time in this line so far. We've got our core 5 suits and a few extra things when it comes to Gundam Wing. We've got our core 5 now, and I'm really happy just to say that, just to say we've got our core team done, and we can kind of move forward with some other more non-main character stuff when it comes to that line. So let's see what this guy can do, see how it moves around. It's pretty similar to the Sandrock in many ways, which is definitely a good thing, because I still think the Sandrock is the most articulated figure we've gotten in this line, or best articulated. But the Shenlong is very close and also has more articulation because, of course, it has the dragon arm. So we've got a head that can look up slightly and look down a little bit as well. The heads on this line are generally always kind of locked down. You do have some pretty decent tilt. Full rotation, of course. Arms are going to be different because they are not the same by any stretch of the imagination. So arms go out at the shoulder. The shoulder pad will move here. You do have a rotation. There is not a butterfly joint, but there is a slight shimmy to this joint structure. So it does have a little bit of movement. There is a bicep swivel. We've got our double jointed, like full range elbows. Really happy with those. And then you've got your ball pegs for the wrists. So you've got, you know, in and out basically, and then a little bit of rotation. Now, this arm is very different. So you can see not only is it sculpted differently, it's constructed in an entirely different fashion. So it will swivel up out of itself, and you've got a hinge here and a hinge here that allows you to utilize the dragon arm. So you've got the head of it here, the fangs will move also, and then the bottom spike on the wrist will also move. So you can actually use this thing, which I think is great. You still have all of the same arm articulation though. So you've got the extra hinges here, you've got an extra hinge here, which would essentially be your elbow, and it's a double joint just like the other one. You've still got your bicep swivel. This is another elbow though, basically. So you've got kind of 2 when it comes to how you want to swivel that around. You've still got your standard elbow, and you've got your regular hand articulation up inside there. But it works surprisingly well. I was really curious to see how this was going to be implemented in this line in particular, because I know there are some limitations when it comes to figure construction. You know, this isn't Robot Spirits by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm pretty happy with how they managed to make it work. It kind of just hides itself really well. You know, in some instances, if you're not paying attention to the design of this figure or this suit in general, you may not realize that this arm is so very different compared to the other one. But I like the way that it works here. I'm pretty happy with it. We've got our torso, that is, and as usual, is going to be the area where it is likely the most locked down. So you've got a little bit backwards and a little bit forward, mostly surprisingly more back than forward. But we do have a pretty good twist. These figures never have full waist twists because of the design of the suits themselves. But that's better than usual, so I'm pretty happy with that. The thrusters in the backpack, while they're not going to help you pose him really, or, you know, stand him up or put him in anything kind of crazy, you do have movement on the thrusters on the backpack. The legs go really far out on this guy. I mean, almost full splits. They are limited going forward, and you're gonna, yeah, that's the problem. You're gonna knock that waist armor off. if you go too far. So it does go decently far, you know, get that leg armor up and it's going to go out about like that, but it's not going to go full 90. It's just not, it doesn't have the range. And then you've got some kick back. We've got our thigh twist up there. And then you've got what are essentially single jointed knees. They're technically double, but they really only function as big single joints. And then down at these ankles, it's a ball peg, and these are squeaky. You've got some swivel, and then you've got your hinge. Super squeaky, like I said, and then you've still got a rocker here as well. They're always a little limited because of the brace around the ankle to hide the actual, you know, armature down there, but it's pretty good, and I've so far not really had any issues. If I have one area where I say this figure is even remotely restricted, especially compared to a lot of other figures in this line, it's going to be the forward kick and then just the sort of crunch or lack thereof on this figure. Otherwise, though, like I said, he is very similar to the Sandrock in many ways. I don't think he's as articulated because something about that suit just seems to work a little bit better in this line, but he still has a lot more posability than a large number of figures in the Universe line thus far. Now, aesthetically, I'm really happy with this guy overall. I have maybe a couple gripes, but in general, this is going to be one of the stronger figures, I think, in the line overall. And for the most part, the wing figures have kind of gone that way. I still think the Wing Gundam itself is probably among the weaker of the bunch, but as we've gone through this particular property, this series, the figures have gotten a lot stronger. Death Scythe is really good. Sandrock is still, again, my favorite. Heavy Arms is really good. The Tallgeese is pretty good. And then we've got Shenlong here, which seems to have taken a lot of cues from some of those other figures, and it just looks really good in conjunction with also moving really well. As usual, a lot of molded plastic. That's typically how these figures work. There are some areas where I would have loved to have seen a little hit of paint, specifically on the legs, because his legs are just so stark white. Like, even just to fill in the little triangles with a little bit of black on him might go a long way, just to break it up, because it's basically a void from the waist down. But the rest of the figure, I think, looks good. Proportionally, I think he's really nice. The red for the chest plate looks good. You've got that sort of two-tone layer for the yellow and the red, and this appears to be, best I can tell, two pieces that are, you know, affixed together. This is not painted red and it's not painted yellow. Where we do have paint is ultimately just going to be stuff like this blue, and then you've got this metallic for the green on the chest and the shoulders, which is really clean, really crisp. Again, I really like the arm for the dragon arm, just because it is so different, but it's sculpted pretty well. It could also use a little bit of black paint just to bring out some of the details in, like the flamethrowers on the front, maybe. But it looks pretty good in general. I'm happy with the sculpt, the size, overall proportioning of that to the rest of the figure. And again, it's still kind of weird to actually get used to how this thing works. But it is a functional arm nonetheless that surprisingly works really well in this line. I was, again, really curious how that was going to play out. But it has worked pretty well, and it does look good. And if you're sort of looking at it, you might not even notice that it is so different from this arm. There is a clear asymmetry to this figure when you pay closer attention, but I think it adds to his charm a little bit. And then you've got, like your big skirt pieces here, which add to break up the figure. He's got the big butt flap on the back, little hits of white there just to break him up a little bit and to keep that, sort of consistency of color. Head sculpt, though, is ultimately where I think they absolutely nail this figure. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that he has probably more paint on the head than anywhere else on the figure. There is a decent amount up here in terms of the eyes, the rangefinder up top. You've got your little sensor up there, little green bauble, and then just the hits of black. The beard, so to speak, is not painted. It's a separate piece, but it looks really good in the head. I think the head is just sculpted really well, and I do like the design for the Shenlong, especially with its very specific V-fin, too. So I'm really happy with the way this guy looks. I mean, ultimately, the only thing I really wish was truly changed about it was that it could have a little bit more paint, and I know that's not the thing with this line in particular. Everything is sort of like a factory fresh figure, and I've said that a lot in pretty much all the other reviews, and that goes for this figure too. He's very much more of the same, but because his legs just have really no color on them, it does sort of look a little off at times. I wish maybe a little bit of black just to fill in maybe the triangles on the knees and just some of these lines on the shins, but otherwise I think he looks pretty solid. Really, really nicely done figure. Now, as far as accessories goes, the Shenlong has basically just the bare minimum of what it truly needs. Again, you know, it has a little bit extra because it has the dragon arm. That very much is its own aspect of the figure, of the suit, that no other suit shares. So it kind of has an extra thing just by virtue of being the Shenlong. But he also has, you know, all the weapons that count here too. We also get the hands that work for this figure as well. So you get fists on him in the box. We get it's a trigger finger hand on the right, and then you get a gripping hand for the left. You also, of course, get the ever-present Tamashii stage adapter. You know, if you need to use one of those for these guys, you don't get the stand, but you get the adapter that goes underneath the crotch. And then we get the shield, which just pegs into the slot on the forearm on the left side. You're right. I do wish, this is one area where I'm going to have a little bit of a gripe. I wish this yellow was a little bit more saturated. It's really dull. It's the same yellow that's on the V-fin and the Dragon Fangs and the chest, but it's so small there that it doesn't necessarily seem as dull. But on this, it is pretty dull. It's pretty apparent anyway that it's a really dull, just molded yellow plastic. It still works okay, but it could be a little bit better, obviously. And then we get our spear, our lance, our halberd type of weapon for the Shenlong, and it looks fantastic. I'm really happy with this. One thing that's really specific about this line when it comes to the energy effects is that they do the metallic aspect instead of going with a translucent plastic, which normally I'd probably pitch a fit about, except that I've come to really like this aspect for this line, especially when I have so many other Gundam things that are translucent already. So this is unique amongst my Shenlong, lances and everything. So you've got the staff aspect of it, and then you've got this separate piece that has the green flame, which is a nice metallic green. So I'm pretty happy with that overall, despite the fact that it is maybe a little bit different from the norm when it comes to Gundam accessories. So not a ton of stuff with this guy, but it's exactly what he needs. And again, I think having this attachment, this whole crazy arm system very much adds to his overall accessory value, even though it's not necessarily an accessory. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this figure. I'm really happy in particular that we have completed a team. Just to be able to say we're done with this little group when we've had, quite a few of these figures so far, and we're finally getting around to being, on the road to completing some groups, completing some teams, and this is a big one. Gundam Wing is a humongous team to just finish out because, of course, there are 5 of them. It's among the larger when it comes to those kind of groups, and I think this is definitely one of the better examples of that group. It's probably not up there with the Sandrock for me. It's pretty close, but it is definitely better than some of the other Wing figures. It's better than a lot of the Gundam Universe figures in general. I think the design of this suit lends itself to being a solid figure in this line. They did a really solid job with the dragon arm. I love this halberd, weapon spear that he has, and I think overall the design of this suit translated to figure form really well. The head sculpt is tremendous. Details up there look great. The only real downside for me is that I wish he had a little bit of something on the legs to break up that sculpt, and then the yellow on that shield is kind of dull. But otherwise, I am having a lot of fun with this figure and really happy to complete that team, and frankly just want more Gundam Wing stuff. So that's going to do it for this look at the Gundam Universe Shenlong. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.